Hey y'all, it's Cece Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. We are back at it with another hair tutorial. Today I am going to be showing you guys how I did these knotless boho goddess braids. We're gonna go step by step through the process, but first let's start out by talking about what materials you're gonna need. This is the hair that I used. This is the X-Pressions pre-stretched Ultra Braid hair in 52 inches, and I got it in the color 2. I used 2 packs of these, and then this is like the 3-pack one. Then I used about 2.5 bundles of this Brazilian hair. One of the bundles was like 24 inches, one was 22, and then this one I think is 20. This is just what my local beauty supply store had, and this is 100% human hair as well. If you don't want to go out and spend money on new bundles, you can definitely use what you have at home. If you have an old wig, you can cut the hair off of that. If you have some clip-ins that you don't really see yourself using again, you can use that. Some old tape-ins, child, use what you have if you don't want to go and buy some bundles because you're gonna have to cut the hair off of the bundle anyway. I also used some Shine and Jam for my hair gel. I used a crochet hook, and I also used some pink gel nail glue. This nail glue came in a pack of 4 and I ended up using like 3 of them. So if you can get your hands on one of these multi-packs, that'll be great. Just a disclaimer, I don't know how many braids I have in my hair, and I wasn't too detailed about my parting. Like the ones in the front I made sure were quite straight, but the ones in the back, I wasn't even using a mirror. Like I literally was just going for it and parting whatever felt right. But that's okay. The good thing about these bohemian styles is that it doesn't have to be perfect. So yeah, sorry again for that. I do not have an answer on how many braids I did and how I went about parting it because I just freestyled it. But yeah, let's get right into the tutorial on how we did these braids. So to prep for this style, I washed, conditioned, deep conditioned, and blow dried my hair. And then I pre-separated and set aside all the hair that I'm gonna need for this style. You're gonna need a bunch of these little pieces that you're gonna be feeding into the braid. This is the size that I separated for my size braids. And then we're gonna be doing 2 different things with the human hair. So of course I'm gonna start off by cutting the hair off of the weft of the bundle. And then I'm just going to section off a little piece. These are the curls that are going to be sticking out of the braids. So yeah, I take a piece about this big, and then I take some of that Shine and Jam gel and put it on the blunt cut end that we just cut. This is what it should look like, and we're just going to prep a bunch of these and set them to the side because we're going to be adding them in while we're braiding. Now for the second thing we're going to be doing with the human hair, of course, cut that hair off the weft of the bundle, and then I'm just going to stretch the ends that I just cut. And this is going to be the goddess part of the style. This is going to be that curly end. And I separated the pieces so that they're about this big. Alright, so we have our hair prepped and set aside. Now let's get started. Of course, I'm going to start out by putting some of that Shine and Jam on my root to make sure it just lays down nice and neat. Now we're just going to divide our hair into 3 sections and start braiding as normal. We want to start feeding that hair in quite close to the top, so I like to braid twice and then start feeding in the hair. So to feed in the hair, I just pause from where I'm at in my braiding process, take a strand of hair and just lay it on top. I grip it in with the 2 outer pieces of the braid. So we're adding it in with that first and third strand, and just make sure you're still gripping it nice and tight and just continue on where you left off with the braid. It honestly looks and sounds harder than it is. I promise if you just try it out, you'll get it down. Honestly, my first time doing knotless braids, I was like, wait, that's it? Like, I thought it was going to be a lot harder than this. Practice it a few times, play around with what grip works for you, and you'll get it down. So I continued to braid down twice and feed in 3 strands before I added in my first curl. We're going to take the end that we added that gel to and just grip it with one of the 3 strands in that braid. I put the other end in my mouth to stabilize it, and then I just continue on with the braid. It doesn't matter where you add it in, just make sure your grip is nice and tight. And I added in some Shine and Jam to the end of that curly piece so that it's not sticking out of the braid too much. So once I get a little further down the braid, I add in another curly piece. So just grip it in with wherever you want to in that braid, stabilize it with your mouth, and then just continue on with the braid, and it'll just you'll end up intertwining that piece in. Adding a little bit of Shine and Jam as I braid to keep everything neat. And at this point, I ended up feeding in one more piece of that braiding hair because my natural hair was coming to an end. So you want to make sure the thickness of the braid is consistent all the way through. And then I decided to add in one more curly strand to this braid. For each braid, I added about 3 to 4 curly pieces. Now let's get into how we finish this braid. When you get towards the end, you want to feed in these curly pieces that we had set aside. And we're going to feed in this human hair just how we fed in the braiding hair. So just kind of lay it on top, grip it with the 2 outer strands, and then braid as normal. I added about 3 pieces of the human hair to the end of the braid. And I wanted to make sure all the braids were the same length, so I continued to braid down until it was the same length as the other braids that I had. So at this point, you're going to have a tiny bit of that braiding hair still in the mix with that human hair. So you're going to take a little bit of that and just tie a knot where you want the braid to end. And now we're going to take that crochet hook and we're going to just stick it in right on top of where we just did that knot. Once you shove that hook through the braid, you're going to attach the little synthetic strand that we've been making a knot out of, attach it to the hook and pull it through. Take that same strand and create another knot. Make sure you're using the braiding hair to do this part. If you're using the human hair, it's going to be too soft, so the knot's not even going to stay. So make sure you're using the braiding hair to create that knot. And I'm going to do that twice. So after I created that knot, I'm going to stick the crochet hook through the braid right on top of that knot again, attach that piece, close the hook and pull it through, and then create one more knot. So we should have 3 knots in total, and that way it's secure and we won't have to worry about nothing unraveling. And now is when we take the nail glue and just take the tiniest little dab and put it right on top of that knot. This is just going to give us that extra layer of security so that nothing unravels. Wait until that nail glue dries 100% and then we can snip off that synthetic piece that we've been creating that knot with. And then we can cut out any other tiny little pieces of the braiding hair that are peeking through, because we want that bottom piece to just be the human hair hanging down. It should almost look like we used a rubber band to secure it, but it's not. We just wrapped the hair around multiple times. And now I'm just cutting out any of those flyaways just so that the braid looks a little neater. And that's one braid done. Let's walk through it one more time. We're going to add in some of that Shine and Jam to the root to make sure it's nice and neat. Divide it into 3 sections and begin braiding. After braiding down twice, we're going to feed in the hair. Grip that hair in with your 1st and 3rd strands and just continue braiding. We're going to braid down twice before we add in our 2nd piece that we're going to feed in. Make sure to keep a tight grip and feeding in will be a lot easier. So once we feed in that 2nd piece, braid down twice, and then we're going to feed in our 3rd piece. Again, lay that hair on top, grip it in with the 2 outer pieces of the braid, and then just take that middle piece, braid it over, and just continue braiding as normal. Once we've fed in our 3rd piece, we can now start adding in that piece of curly hair. Grip it in with the braid, stabilize it with your mouth, and then just continue braiding down. I'm adding in some Shine and Jam as I go to prevent as many flyaways as possible. Then once we get to where my natural hair ends, I'm going to feed in one more piece of that braiding hair just to make sure the hair is consistently thick all the way through. Braid in those curly pieces where you see fit. Again, I added in 3 to 4 curly pieces per braid. The more curly pieces you add on one braid, the more full the style is going to look, the more curly and bohemian it's going to look. When we get towards the end of the braid, we're going to start feeding in some of that human hair. I fed in 3 small pieces and braided it down until it was even with the other braids.
Take a piece of that braiding hair and just create a knot where you want the braid to end. Shove your crochet hook through the braid right on top of that knot we created, and then attach that piece of braiding hair to the end of the hook and pull it through. Seal it with a knot and then repeat that crochet hook step. Add the tiniest dab of nail glue on top of that knot we created. Adding too much nail glue will create a white cast, so be careful to just add a tiny dot. Once the nail glue has dried, we can cut out those last strands of braiding hair that are left. Cut away the flyaways to clean up the braid, and that is the finished style.
Alright, so that was it. That was how I did these knotless bohemian goddess braids. Y'all don't want to know how long this style took me. You actually don't even want to know. Like, I'm not gonna even tell you. It took me 24 hours. And I'm not being dramatic. Like, I probably started at 5 p.m. and didn't sleep and ended at like 4 something p.m. the next day. So if you're gonna attempt this style, make sure you got some time on your hands. Or just do a half of it one day, get some rest, and then the other half the next day. I'm just insane, so I did it all in one day and it took me a full day. I was talking to someone else who had these braids. They were a little bigger than mine, but they actually went to like a professional braider and they said theirs took around 13 hours. So this is just one of those styles that takes a long time no matter what. Of course, the smaller you do them, the longer it's gonna take. These actually are quite small. So yeah, just keep that in mind. This is a style that takes a long time, especially if you're a beginner with braiding. It might take you a few tries to get it right. So it's all worth it though, because this style eats. I love it so much and I can't wait to play around with different hairstyles and stuff. Another thing to take note of, even though I'm using human hair, do not be fooled. This style definitely gets tangled. Some of the like little curls get matted and stuff like that. I've had these braids in for not even a full week yet, and I definitely have had my moments where I'm like ripping through some of these curls trying to get some of the knots out. It's not like you can comb through the hair once it's braided in there, so like it's gonna get tangled because you can't really comb it. I saw another creator say that they kind of cut out some of the curls that were looking a bit too tangled, so that's why I put about 3 to 4 of the curly pieces on each of the braids. So if they start getting tangled, I can cut some out and it'll still look nice and full and curly. I think I touched on everything, but if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it was clear. And yeah, let me know if you give this hairstyle a try. It can be a little tricky at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's gonna be worth it. And the braiders are charging a lot of money for it. So, if you're up for the challenge, this is something that you can do on your own and save you a little coin. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.